Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. I am here with Rachel Bellotti and Shane Reed. We are discussing an article written by Shane called Meaningless Tasks. Shane, would you like to share with us what inspired you to write this article?
Well, I was doing a meaningless task.
I was
there are certain aspects of the coaching profession that are very unseen and unseen not only to the general population, but also to the coaches in general, to themselves. Anyway, so I was all in my own, just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Like, what's the point? I don't even want the outcome. I don't care whether or not the outcome is good or bad in this thing and whatever. And so I really just I just stopped and was like, okay, well, what do I want it to look like? And I was like, well, I'm just going to use it as practice for the next time, or practice for the next time I'm going to have to interact in this way. And it just totally it didn't make it. I don't want to say it necessarily made it fun. I don't want it to make out like, oh, it was the greatest thing ever. Like, oh. But it at least grounded me and connected me to being meaningful again, as opposed to just something that I was obligated to do. Like, I actually I took it and I was like, okay, well, this is gonna be great practice, and I'm gonna try to take something out of this, even though I could give two craps about what happens.
It reminds me a lot of how we talk about, you have your to-do list and you're like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to have to do this. I don't have to do the laundry and the dishes and the blah, blah, blah. And then like the invitation of like, what if you created a to-be list next to it? And so I hear for you, having something being meaningful while you're doing it is how you were able to get through it. So, it might not be my way, but maybe for me it's like make it like the weirdest. I love weird things, so like make it a weird new twist to whatever. And so who are you being when you're having to do these doing things that you might not want to?
Yeah. And I like that you brought up make it your way and you mentioned earlier laundry, because that was kind of my thing with laundry. I just don't like laundry. It was a thing for me. And talk about meaningless. To me, it was meaningless. It was like, yeah, I like clean clothes, but I don't want to have to get them clean. And so anytime I had to do laundry, I really dreaded it. It was just one of those things like, oh, it's laundry day. It just sucked the life out of me. But I liked listening to Audible. I like listening to podcasts. So when I discovered, like you say in your article, if you can switch your perspective on it or come up with a new way of doing it, so that became my time to listen to the next podcast. So I was in this series of podcasts that really excited me. And so laundry became, oh, cool, I get to finish this podcast. Or I can listen to the new podcast. So it became an exciting thing because that became my podcast time instead of my laundry time.
I love that. I think it's so cool to hear your ladies take on it, because it's, Laura, you connected it with an emotion. Like, I'll be excited about doing this task at the same time. And then, Rachel, what I heard you say is like, I just want to make it weird. It'll be fun if it's weird. And, and for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to practice something. And it can be any one of those things, and you can make it totally yours. And which is what I think the real power comes from behind, like, whatever the article is. Like, you can make it whatever the heck you want. It doesn't have to be this boring, terrible thing that that you have to do or you're required to do or whatever. So
I hear you say it can be boring and it can also be this other thing.
Totally.
Right? It's also going to be boring.
Because some things you just can't make exciting. And it's interesting because I like that you go into examine that program, because it's a place that I really had to get to from a conscious space. It's like, okay, I want laundry done. I don't want to have to do it, but right now I have to do it. So it forces you to examine that program. So how did you examine your program? I mean, what even brought you to the awareness that you needed to look at it?
That's a great question. I think at the moment, because there was a point where it was basically an appointment, for lack of a better word, and without going too much into it, and so I knew that I had to do it at this time, and so leading up to it, it was that dread, it wasn't fear, it was just dread. I think would be sufficient enough, and so I just didn't. Do I really want to feel this way? Do I really want to feel dread over this thing that I don't know. I don't want to shit all over myself, but that I shouldn't feel dread about, because it's not that big of a deal. It's just a task that has to be done, and so I think that I don't know. The awareness came that I didn't have to feel that way if I didn't want to, and I think the awareness is key, because if you don't have the awareness, you can't change anything. You can't make anything better.
Yeah.
At least purposefully.
I hear a curiosity in there of you just asking yourself the question of like, do I have to feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Could I feel something different? Well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I also loved that the idea that you could practice with benign tasks that really, like, to your point, it doesn't really matter what happens. Like, it's just laundry. I mean, I guess you want to have clothes to wear or whatever. It's this isn't like crazy, but using that to realize who you want to be. It's like this really benign space to practice being you. And like really getting more comfortable of like, okay, I feel this way. I can choose something different. Because we know the more we practice stuff, it is a practice, and the more deliberate we are with it, the more that's going to just reprogram and apply in other areas of our life. So then who knows, maybe as more serious things come into play where you're like, ugh, I'm feeling this. It's like now all of a sudden you're like, I'm feeling this. I don't like it. How do I want to feel? I get to choose in it. So it feels like a really cool space and invitation to practice being you no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, and that feeling of dread, I mean, it sounds like that felt like that was your invitation. Okay, I'm dreading this. I don't like experiencing this feeling. What programs am I running that are creating this feeling, and how can I do them differently? I mean, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is there anything you would like to share? Any other tidbits for people? Any other way of getting at, okay, I have this meeting with my boss, I'm really dreading it, or those big things in life that people really have a hard time going into? Or is there any advice you can give them on how to break this down so they can get at those programs that they might be running?
Man, I guess it's super, in my experience, I think it's super easy to know what you don't want to do, right? Because that feeling is very, I feel like us as humans, we're very comfortable with that feeling because it's like, it is so distinct or whatever. Mm-hmm. So just being able to go there and just say, do I want to? Because you can if you want. You can mm-hmm. be pissed off about something. Go for it. Have fun with it. But then be going into the choice. Just, do you want to choose to be different in that situation? So yeah.
And I like that you go into that. We're so used to these feelings. We're used to dreading laundry or cleaning the house. I mean, not specific, or doing the lawn or whatever, or shoveling or whatever it is.
Pointless meeting.
Right. So whatever it is you dread, we become so programmed just to do it regardless of how we feel. And I like that you introduce, we can do it differently. We don't have to feel the dread when we go into these experiences. We can feel excitement. We can feel weird. We can bring so many different aspects into that, so it doesn't have to be met with dread every time we do it.
And what's cool is like you can totally own it, own the experience, even though it's not an experience that you choose, you still get to own the heck out of it because you're in it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I don't get to choose that I have to go to this pointless meeting, but I get to choose how I go to the pointless meeting.
Yeah.
And so it just makes it, I don't know, for me, it makes it more enjoyable.
I just envisioned you as a clown with like big red afro hair going into your meeting.
I would do that.
Rachel. Oh yeah. I mean, certainly there are some societal standards that you might have to live up to in these.
Oh, come on.
You would think.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Okay, is there anything else you want people to know? Any
I don't think
revelations,
so.
insights?
I think it's. I think it was fun little practice for me to have, and I was like, what the heck? I could write about this, I guess.
I can share this with others who are doing the same mundane thing that I'm doing.
Maybe other people don't like to do boring stuff like I do. I don't know.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Shane. If you would like to learn further about what we do here and some of our guiding principles, our human development principles, please visit our website at thrivehdc.com. We also have classes starting in April. April 10th, we have an HPT class, our Human Progress Training course starting up. We go through some really cool modules that run from confidence to conscious navigation. A lot of cool topics that we discuss. So please feel free to join us, and thank you for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Thanks, Shane.
Bye.
Thanks, Shane.